Hi everybody, it's Jennifer McCreath on Sunday, December 7th, 2025. Up here in beautiful St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. For those of you watching from the United States, if you draw a line from where you are to the North Pole, you go about 3/4 of the way there, you're going to be where I am right now. Way up north. And amazingly, some of us way out here pay attention to U.S. football. I guess it helps that I spent most of my life growing up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is very close proximity to NFL and NCAA powerhouses such as the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, of course the Ohio State Buckeyes, and the Michigan Wolverines. So let's take a look, as I do every year, at how the committee got it wrong yet again for the NCAA football college football playoff brackets. So every year they kind of tweak the system and tweak the rules. It doesn't matter how many teams you put into the playoffs, there's always going to be somebody that feels left out and feels they got screwed. Way back in the days, before we had any type of playoff or even a championship game, we would have regional bowl matchups. The Big Ten champ would play the Pac-10 champ in the Rose Bowl. And if you weren't in those conferences, you didn't get to go to the Rose Bowl. So you would probably get to go to either the Sugar Bowl or the Orange Bowl. There were actually many times back in last century where you could have two undefeated teams throughout the season. They go to different bowl games, they win their bowls, and you've got two teams claiming to be the best team. Finally, after enough of that, they said, let's create a, quote, BCS, a championship game, unquote. We will pick who we think the two best teams are, regardless of what conference they are in, and guarantee every year we're going to have a 1 versus 2 game. And guess how well that went? Yeah, some years it was quite clear who the top two teams were. Sometimes there were 3 or 4 at the top that were of equal talent. I think there was even a year where Pete Carroll had a team in the top area. It came down to 3 one-loss teams at the top, and 2 of them got to play in the 1-2 game. Pete Carroll's team ended up in a 3rd versus 5th place bowl game. But at the end of the season, one poll actually picked Pete Carroll's team to be number 1. Back then, there was no committee. It was just the Associated Press and the coaches who ran their own separate polls. So we evolve. We create the 4-team playoff. And again, that went well for a while. But of course, there was always going to be that question about the 5th place team. Did they get it right? Who should be in? Who shouldn't be? And of course, the quote BCS Busters. Power Conference versus Group of 5. How powerful are the powerfuls? And how powerful are some of these groups? Well, Cincinnati finally broke that bubble, undefeated, out of the AAC, which used to be the Big East. Of course, the Big East used to be a power conference. So last year we moved to 12 teams, but we said that the top 4 conference champs would be seeded 1 through 4 and get byes. Well, guess what? Some of the power conferences had very, very crappy conference champions, which meant that a group of 5 team, the Boise State Broncos, were given the number 3 seed. So they changed the rules again this year. Okay, we're going to have 12 teams, 5 conference champs get in, and 7 at large, and the seeding is specifically based on how the committee ranks them. It has nothing to do with whether or not you win your conference. So, of course, the Pac-12 doesn't really exist anymore. It's a Pac-2, and they don't have conference recognition rights in this case. So, no Pac-12 champion. Sorry, Oregon. Amazing. And we're going to get into that later. The ACC somehow decided Duke and Virginia should be playing for their conference championship and not Miami. And of course Duke won, which meant you've had a 5-loss ACC champ, so you can't really consider them a top 5 divisional team either. So yes, 2 group of 5 teams in the playoffs. Tulane and James Madison, neither of which showed up in the top 12 rankings of either the CFP or my own personal rankings. So now everyone's saying, wait a minute now, maybe we shouldn't put conference champions in. Symbicort. If you can't breathe properly, try Symbicort. It's only $100 a tube. So, it's interesting to see what the committee did today. Biggest surprise was they had Notre Dame ahead of Miami every week for the past month. And all of a sudden, the switcheroo happened today. Why? If anything, Notre Dame should have got bigger and better. Even though you're idle, the people you beat play. And some of those teams did well. A week ago, Notre Dame's win over Boise, yeah, whatever, they're an 8-4 team, whatever. All of a sudden, a week later, Boise is now a conference champion. So guess what? Notre Dame's win over Boise you'd think would be more impressive. Well, apparently not. So let's get right down to business. Conference title games. Do we need them anymore? Do they add value? Why do we have them? We used to have divisions within conferences. Either north-south or east-west. And these type of games were designed so that you could have the best of the East play the best of the West for bragging rights in your conference. Back in the day, everyone played their divisional opponents, all of them, and only half of the other division. So we weren't guaranteed that the 2 best teams in the conference would play each other in the regular season, hence why they created the conference title game. Now there's only one conference left that still has divisions, and that's the Sun Belt. We also see conferences have gone from 10 teams to 15, even 20 almost. So we're now seeing conferences exist where teams don't even get to play their own conference mates. Or in some cases, we're seeing rematches. Alabama versus Georgia. Played in the regular season? Go play again in the conference title game. BYU, Texas Tech, same thing. So what do we learn from watching those 2 games yesterday? If you win your conference title game, you'll probably hold your position, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll move up. If you lose your conference title game, unless your name is Alabama, you're going down in the rankings. 11-1 BYU. There were 8 teams? No, there were 7 teams, 7 power teams with either no losses or 1 loss. For reasons unclear to me, BYU was left out of the top 7 last week. Several 2-loss power teams were ahead of them. What does that tell members of the Big 12? You're trying to promote equality and say all 4 power conferences matter. But guess what? If you have 1 loss in the Big 12, you're not guaranteed a playoff spot anymore. But if you're in the SEC, you can have 3 losses and we'll still put you in. What if BYU and Texas Tech said, we're not going to play a conference title game. We're quite happy with our 11-1 seasons. We don't need to play a Week 13 game. We're going to stay at home and watch TV and watch other teams beat up on them, on these people. Sure, if BYU would have won yesterday, then they would have been in the playoffs, probably. As would have Texas Tech. What about Georgia and Alabama? Is it fair to ask Georgia to play an extra game when they're actually better and higher ranked than Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Oklahoma? Who else did they put in the playoffs? Vandy didn't make it. Still, shouldn't you be rewarded for doing well? Get that bye? If anything, the lower ranked teams should be fighting for that last playoff spot. This leads to, I guess, my next point is that the Power 5 has now really become the Power 2. The Pac-12 has devolved. It doesn't exist anymore. They only got 2 teams. That's not a conference. Next year they're going to grab, I believe, 6 Group of 5 teams and put them into the Pac. So they will now have 8 teams and they can call themselves a conference. But does that automatically mean you should be a power conference because you got half of the Mountain West and a Sun Belt team in there? Hell no. So what happened to the Pac-12? Well, all the good teams went to the Big Ten, and all the crappy teams went to the ACC. And all the good teams from the ACC left for the SEC. And the best teams in the Big 12 went to the SEC. So basically we have a Power 2 system. You've got the SEC and the Big 10, and then you got, well, everyone else. And if you look at it, they got 6 of the top 8 ranked teams. We got 3 SEC, and you got 3 Big 10. And then it goes from there. Big 12, ACC, this should be a major wake-up call. By the way, ACC, you probably shouldn't even have anyone in the playoffs. But the committee was too damn shamed and embarrassed to leave you off. That's why they put Notre Dame mysteriously below Miami for the first time in a month, even though neither teams played yesterday. They couldn't justify putting Virginia or Duke in the playoffs. Why the hell was Duke even in that conference title game? Why do you even have conference title games? Why don't you just go by the rankings? Okay, ACC, we've had a great year. We've played 12 games. Clearly the best team we got is Miami. If we're going to put one of our teams into the playoff hat, we're going to send Miami. Well, no. What else can we talk about? Demise of the Pac-12. How the hell did that happen? How did they allow it to happen? Geographic rivalries used to be so important in college sports. It also cuts down on travel, time and travel expenses. Now that Stanford has joined the ACC, how have they done? How are all these cross-coast trips helping them? Yeah, go take a 9-hour flight and a 3-hour time zone change and play your next game at 9 o'clock in the morning, Pacific time. Yeah, I didn't think it would work out. How about you, Cal? How are you guys doing? Interesting. Just very interesting. I think it's time to get rid of conference title games. I don't think they add value. What I'd like to see is you give 8 teams playoff spots at the end of the regular season. And instead of playing conference title games, you have qualifying. You take teams 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and make them play 4 qualifying games. The winners are in the playoffs, the losers are out. You still give a bye, basically, to teams 5, 6, 7, and 8, and a double bye to teams 1, 2, 3, and 4. Which I think you need to do. You earn those spots, you deserve the rest. You shouldn't have to play these extra games. Yeah, ACC. What does it say that you've got Tulane, who I've ranked 16, the committee ranked 20, and James Madison, who we've both ranked at 24, are your 5th best conference champion? Again, how the hell did Duke get into that conversation? I had Duke ranked 38. Thought it was comical that their coach last night was suggesting that they deserve to be in the top 12. No. You lost to 2 group teams. You lost to Connecticut and, amazingly enough, Tulane. And you lost 3 more games. Sorry. That's not good enough to make the playoffs. That reminds me of the time the Big East had a 7-5 conference champ go to the BCS, where of course they got absolutely annihilated. I think it was Connecticut that went 7-5. I can't remember. That was a long time ago. Again, the Big East. I grew up watching the Big East and I loved it. Some of those rivalries were amazing. Miami, Virginia Tech, and Rutgers. Who can ever forget when number 1 ranked 9-0 Miami Hurricanes went into the 1-8 Rutgers Scarlet Knights in Piscataway in 2002, 44-point favorites. And guess what? Rutgers took the lead into the fourth quarter. What a game that was. Yeah, I only remember it because I was there, and it was my first NCAA football game in person. And then, okay, people started to think maybe we should leave the Big East and go to the ACC. The ACC's bigger and better. There's more competition. So out goes Miami, out goes Virginia Tech. Who else left? Pittsburgh. So we bring in these new teams. Okay, Louisville's in, Cincinnati's in. 2006. I don't know why, but Rutgers has kind of been a team I root for, probably because growing up in the 90s, they were always the worst team. And you'd see them in week 1 get blown out by Notre Dame 58-0. 2006 was a great year for Rutgers, great year for the Big East. Big Thursday night game against Louisville, who was ranked number 3 at the time. Rutgers beat Louisville. And of course, they would then lose to Cincinnati and West Virginia. Now the ACC's a blip on the radar. It's got a lot of these lower ranked, smaller schools. Tulane, I don't know how they fell. They used to be a power school, but they're not now. But I got to give credit. Tulane booked 3 power schools this year. Maybe that's a rule. If you're going to put a power team in the playoffs, they have to have played at least 3 power opponents. James Madison only booked 1 game, and they lost it to Louisville. The rest of their slate was Group of 5. Is it fair to play a bunch of Group of 5 teams and call yourself a top 12 team? Yeah. Same with North Texas. They only had 1. They did win their power. They did beat their power opponent. But still, you wonder, why is Tulane ranked higher with the extra loss? Well, they played Ole Miss. They played who? Northwestern? Can't remember the third one. How do we fix this? We need to somehow find a way to rebuild these 5 power conferences and make them all equal and meaningful. Or you get rid of conferences. None of this, everybody's leaving to join the SEC. Maybe you make a rule that says, okay, no more conferences. You can play whoever the hell you want. But maybe somehow promote geographic rivals. Maybe you draw a circle and say, within this radius, you must play 8 out of your 12 games, because we don't like teams taking 9-hour flights back and forth all the time. Again, I go back to, how do we get the best 12 teams in the playoffs? As tough as it is, you got to let these ACC and Big 12 teams either value the games they play in conference or book more out of conferences. Maybe in order to prove how tough these ACC teams are, maybe we should force them to book 4 SEC opponents each year and see how they do. Same with the Big 12. If you don't like the Big 12 committee, BYU, not a fan, okay. BYU, you can go play, we're going to book Oklahoma and Texas and Florida on your resume, and then you can play 8 or 9 Big 12 games. I just don't get it. Wins and losses have to matter. You play to win the game. That's what's so great about sports, right, Herman Edwards? You don't play to just play it. We also need some consistency. If we're going to have conference title games, they need to mean something. There has to be value for the winners and consequences for the losers. And teams that are at the top, if anyone's going to get a bye, it should be the best teams, because they have to. If you earn a bye, is it fair that we forced Ohio State, Indiana, and Georgia to all play yesterday? I had those as my top 3 teams. They all had to play. Their opponents, they all got a rest. Doesn't sound like a good system to me. Anyway, folks, that's my thoughts. For the record, let me run through the bracket that they gave us. And I will tell you, based on my rankings, what this looks like. Indianapolis won. First round bye. Second round, they will play either number 7 Oregon or number 24 James Madison. Number 4th seed I had is Texas Tech. First round bye. They will get the winner of number 9 Oklahoma and number 12 Alabama. I had Georgia at number 2. They get the bye. They'll play either 6 Ole Miss or 20 Tulane. 3 Ohio State. Bye against 5 Texas A&M or 11 Miami. So who did I think got screwed? Texas A&M. I had them ranked number 5. The committee put them at 7. They only had 1 loss, and it was Texas. Who's a really darn good team. I had Texas ranked 13. Ultimately, if you're going to put the top 12 teams in, I had BYU at 8, and they didn't get in. I had Notre Dame at 10, and they did not get in. In my opinion, Alabama ranked 12. Miami ranked 11, should not have been in there. Unless you kick out James Madison and Tulane and put Alabama and Miami in there. I love the group of 5s. But maybe you shouldn't be in the playoffs unless you're legitimately ranked in the top 12. You want the best teams in there? You didn't get them. In my opinion, you got 1, Notre Dame and BYU that should have been in there, but they ain't. What do you think, folks? Thanks for watching.